Chapter 51. 3 Gods, 1 Ghost. Reverend, nowhere in sight. Part 1. I want to try and take care of that thing myself, Shi Qingxuan continued sternly. All things considered, your highness has more experience with such entities, so are you free? If not, don't force yourself. Shi Qingxuan had helped Shilian on many occasions in the past, so now that Shi Qingxuan had come to him with an emergency, there was no way Shilian could decline and say he had the heart but not the power. But Huacheng had come from far away as a guest, and he hadn't been here for more than a few days. If Shilian left, who was going to host Huacheng? Although it wasn't like Shilian himself was a very good host to begin with. As he considered his options, Huacheng smiled and propped his chin on one hand. Is Gaga going to try and catch a glimpse of that Reverend of Empty Words? If it wouldn't be a bother, will you bring me along? It's a rare monster, after all. I've never seen it myself. Much ashamed, but Sunlung understands my predicament, Shilian thought to himself. Filled with gratitude for Huacheng's thoughtfulness on the matter, Shilian nodded. Shi Qingxuan didn't say anything on the subject. Of course, he knew perfectly well that Huacheng wasn't coming along to help him, but he at least wasn't coming to cause trouble. In the end, whether Huacheng came or not meant nothing to him. The Reverend of Empty Words is an elusive creature, Shilian warned. Who knows when it will appear again? I couldn't tell you, Shi Qingxuan replied. If nothing else, I plan on going to the imperial capital and reserving the best room at the best restaurant to drink for around 80 to 100 days straight. We'll put on plays and set off firecrackers every day, and that will flush it out eventually. That's one way to do it, Shilian acknowledged. But even if it shows itself, we might not be able to capture it. The best way to win a battle is to know oneself and one's enemy. Has Lord Windmaster investigated its past prey? How does it hunt? We should see if there's any patterns. My brother already investigated that, of course. Shi Qingxuan retrieved a scroll from his sleeve and spread it open. Shilian scooted closer to take a look, and was in awe in spite of himself. Amazing, amazing. Such taste. This creature really only fished for big catches. Every name on that scroll was a notable character in the mortal realm, and almost all of them had met tragic ends. Moreover, every one of said tragic ends was a suicide following a mental breakdown. There were those who had slit their throats after their troops met crushing defeat. There were those who made a clean exit with a white bandage noose after their fortunes were ruined overnight. There were those who simply sank into the depths of despair after spending their entire lifetime seeking influence and affluence, only to achieve nothing for their struggle. They weren't necessarily defeated by the hand of the Reverend of Empty Words. They were overcome by their own fear of loss. Neither emperors nor kings were on that list. As sons of heaven, true rulers had a protective aura that prevented evil from easily invading their hearts. Generally speaking, those who had the potential to ascend also had natural spiritual shields enveloping their bodies that forced evil to stand down. This made Shilian suspect that whatever had attached onto Shi Qingxuan wasn't something so simple. Perhaps someone behind the scenes was purposely targeting him. If that were the case, the person must be quite formidable. But Shi Qingxuan had only been a baby when he was marked. So how had he attracted such a character? Just then Huacheng spoke. Gaga, may I take a look? Shilian passed the scroll to him. Here. Huacheng gave it a brief skim. Who put the scroll together? My brother, what of it? Shi Qingxuan replied. Huacheng tossed the scroll on the table. Nothing. Just that it's full of glaring mistakes. I suggest your brother try again. Hearing this, Shi Qingxuan was ready to throw a fit, or perhaps even fists. A crimson rain sought flower! Shilian held him back and said apologetically, Lord Windmaster, please sit down. Sit down, let it go. Sunlung always talks like that. He doesn't mean it. Always like that. Shi Qingxuan sounded doubtful, but sat down. Shilian turned to Huacheng. Sunlung, you said it's full of outrageous mistakes. How so? Huacheng scooted over to him. They were now sitting much closer than before. Huacheng pointed at a few names. These are wrong. Shilian looked at the names closely. All of them were known to be lawless, malevolently evil tyrants. How do you know? Because I killed them, Huacheng said. Doesn't this say they all died by suicide? Shilian asked. I sent messengers to greet them, and they killed themselves before I made any further move, Huacheng explained. Perhaps that doesn't count as my kill? One couldn't truly say whether that counted, but at least he was honest. Shi Qingxuan's lips twitched, and he coughed uncomfortably a few times. Can ghosts please not so blatantly describe how they kill people in front of heavenly officials? Can ghosts also please not openly discuss this with other heavenly officials, in front of other heavenly officials? Hua Cheng pointed at a few other names. These are wrong too. And who killed them? Shi Lian asked. Blackwater did them in, Hua Cheng said. Shi Lian was taken aback. Blackwater Demon Shen? Doesn't he always lie low? Doesn't mean he doesn't kill, Hua Cheng said. Then he addressed Shi Qingxuan. That esteemed brother of yours gave you a scroll that's inaccurate and full of errors. There's no heart in this investigation at all. That bundle of rags is nothing but a red herring meant to divert your attention. I suggest you rip it up and get to work researching another one. Shi Qingxuan snatched back the scroll. My brother isn't like that. Although his retort was weak, his voice was firm. Shi Wudu wouldn't be so careless when it came to his own younger brother, so there could only be one possibility. Every profession has its own specialties. Lord Watermaster surely should have borrowed another's expertise for this investigation. Shi Lian asked Shi Qingxuan, May I inquire who actually put the scroll together? After some hesitation, Shi Qingxuan replied, Ling Wen. Shi Lian rubbed his forehead and stopped speaking. Although other heavenly officials cursed the palace of Lingwen for its inefficiency, it still wouldn't be expected to make so many mistakes. This looked like a rough draft turned in to appease a deadline. The tumors seemed to share a good relationship, at least on the surface, but outsiders would probably never know what lay beneath. Let me tell you another way to discern the differences between what is true and what's fake. Hua Cheng leaned back and continued. Once the Reverend of Empty Words sets its sight on its prey, it goes for the roots as well. Not only will its target suffer and die, the families and friends of said target will also be affected. As such, regarding those on the scroll whose own lives were the only casualty in their affair, whose friends and families remain alive and well, those names are wrong. Shi Qingxuan's face paled for a moment when he heard this, but he quickly regained his cheer and laughed dryly at Ming Yi. Ming Xiong, doesn't that mean you're in danger too? You're my best friend after all. Ming Yi shifted to sit farther away from Shi Qingxuan, his expression written with the sentiment that he'd rather not have Shi Qingxuan as a best friend, please and thank you. This move brought him closer to Shi Lian. Hua Cheng's gaze swept over Ming Yi, sharp as a knife. Seeing that Shi Qingxuan hadn't forgotten to joke around even in times like these, Shi Lian couldn't help but smile. Nevertheless, he could tell Shi Qingxuan was still anxious. Rather, it was because of his anxiety that he had to use extra cheer to suppress it. Shi Qingxuan flashed his Windmaster fan and fluttered it 5-6 times faster than usual, his black hair flying wildly in the wind. Let's go right now, to drink ourselves into oblivion atop the tallest, fanciest tower. I have to see for myself if it'll dare show its face with so many of us around. We've got strength in numbers. Lord Windmaster, please calm yourself, Shi Lian urged him. Wait for me for a moment. I've got a few small things to take care of in the shrine. Who knew how many days this trip would take? With 2 children and 2 mouths, plus a godforsaken ghost possessing a man, he couldn't just leave them be. He considered trying to find someone reliable in the village to watch over them, but it seemed Hua Cheng knew his every worry and spoke up. If Gaga must go, then go without worries. I've hands to spare. Someone will take care of the shrine while you're gone. Shi Lian breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness for Sanlang. It'll be better if there's someone here to watch over things. Hua Cheng smiled. Yeah, there needs to be someone watching over things. Watching over obviously meant different things to the both of them, but neither pried deeper. Ming Yi moved the altar table away and began drawing the teleportation array on the ground. Shi Qingxuan's fan fluttered so rapidly that its form could barely be made out. By the way, Your Highness, I forgot to ask earlier, who exactly is that outside the door? How did I piss him off to provoke such rude words from his mouth? To be asked about only at the end of things, and in such an offhand manner, if Qirong overheard, he'd no doubt suffer another attack of heartburn. As Shi Lian busied himself packing up Roya and Fengshen, he thought it really was quite impersonable of Shi Qingxuan. On the other hand, Qirong hardly counted as a person. Didn't he announce his own title? Wait, that really is the Green Ghost? Shi Qingxuan was surprised. With that face and that attitude? You really do have to see these kinds of things for yourself. Shi Lian rubbed his forehead and briefly gave an account of what had transpired these last few days, and upon concluding the tale, reminded Shi Qingxuan to keep it a secret, especially when it came to Leng Qinqiu. While they spoke, Ming Yi finished drawing the teleportation array. The one that Nanfeng drew last time had been crude and rough, and it had taken him ages to finish. Ming Yi was the complete opposite. His hands were swift and precise, completing the drawing with but a single sweeping motion. The circle he drew was cleaner and more accurate than if one used a compass and a ruler, and the characters were so neat and orderly, they could have been mistaken for pressed prints. Shi Lian couldn't help but marvel. With the array completed, Mingyi said, Let's go. Shi Qingquan sucked in a breath and blew gently to extinguish the candlelight. Huacheng took the lead and was the first person to push open the door. The little door creaked open into pitch blackness beyond. The air was thick with mold and dust, as if the door was connected to an old house that had been abandoned for many years. Following behind Huacheng was Shi Lian, who softly thanked Huacheng for taking the initiative to open the door as he paused. Then came Shi Qingquan, and last was Mingyi. Once he crossed through, he closed the door behind him. The moment it shut, an ominous voice came from the darkness behind the door. The place you wish to go will become the nightmare you never wish to recall. The instant Shi Lian heard this, he let loose with a kick. The door instantly collapsed from the impact. It was no longer Puchi's shrine behind the door, but rather a pile of trash. Once a teleportation array was used, it lost its effect. That intense kick roused thick clouds of dust, and as Shi Lian coughed, he was glad it wasn't the door Huacheng had made for him. With his sleeves covering his face, he asked, Was that the referent of empty words? Shi Qingquan tightly gripped his whisk and his Windmaster fan. That's its voice. Has it been following me? Shi Lian waved away the dusty air. No, there were 3 heavenly officials and 1 ghost king in the shrine earlier. If something were following you, how could none of us notice? Clearly it only just arrived. Calm down, Mingyi advised Shi Qingquan. I'm calm, Shi Qingquan exclaimed. I'm very calm. I calmed down a long time ago. Huacheng stood ahead and said leisurely, Calm is good, but there's definitely something afoot. Does anyone know where we are? Shi Lian looked around and wondered this as well. Weren't we headed to the nicest restaurant in the imperial capital? No matter how he looked at it, this old abandoned house looked nothing like any restaurant Shi Qingquan had spoken of. The 4 of them explored the place and found the entrance, but it was closed with massive locks. The matter of the locks was addressed by another kick from Shi Lian, and the door creaked open. What appeared before them was neither hell nor any such sort of mysterious evil landscape. It was a perfectly ordinary, dull little town. Huacheng arched his brows. The imperial capital shouldn't look like this. Shi Lian agreed wholeheartedly. The aura of an imperial capital could not be matched by such a small town. He turned his head. Lord Earthmaster, did you make a mistake in your array? I didn't make any mistakes, Mingyi stated. This wasn't our original destination. Shi Lian immediately understood. It meant the creature had meddled. It had sent them here. And that is Volume 3. We'll start on Volume 4 tomorrow, probably.